All right, good morning all. We will get started. So if I can have everybody stand, we'll do the prayer and pledge. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings you bestowed upon us in this club. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of an organization and giving back to this community. Thank you for our first responders. Thank you for our healthcare workers. Thank you for those serving us here and abroad. I just pray that you watch over us, continue to bless this club so we can do great things in this community. Bless this food, nourish our lives. And pray. Amen. Come in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we elected board last Friday and our current president says see you later. So not only are you stuck with me next year, you get an early glimpse. All right, any guests this morning? No guests. Eric joined a month ago, weeks ago, last week. So perfect. So welcome, Eric. Glad you're here. Was also part of the auction as well. So thanks for joining there. All right, announcements. So I think some of you have heard, but Rhonda Russell, member and past president, her husband Lee passed away this week. So please keep the family and Rhonda in your prayers as well. I don't have any details on any service. I don't know if anybody else here does yet, but when we do, we'll make sure to pass that along to everybody. Induction dinner next Wednesday night here at the KC will be the induction dinner, 6:30. We'll have dinner and drinks. So that's at 6:30. Remember, significant other spouse is welcome as well. So should be a fun evening. So next Wednesday, 6:30. Let's see. Let's see, Matt. Nope. 4th of July parade, don't forget, is Saturday, July 3rd. So be looking for newsletter. We'll have all the details, signups for shifts and volunteering for that event, but just put that on the save the date, Saturday, July 3rd for the parade. Let's see. Mr. Threadgill, something else going on?
You got one more day for you to vote. That's tomorrow. It's the real election day. Not like point is 7 to 7 tomorrow. You can vote in any polling location. If you didn't vote in the first election, you can still vote in this runoff. And almost every elementary and junior high and high school library are Baxter. So please don't let just a handful of people decide this decision. We've got one of our own country running the school board, and I'm sure you would appreciate it. Vote early and vote off.
Yes, just echo that. Yes, tomorrow, 7 to 7. So please get there and vote. If you have, thank you. If you have not, please do it. And then also take a few people along with you and encourage people to get out and vote. It is important for Lake Highland. So let's see, any other news or announcements that anybody else has? Nothing. All right. So with that, I'm going to invite Raymond up. He has a special presentation this morning.
Good morning, Lake Highlands. At the end, this is the end of the year. Obviously, last Friday was the end of school, and I don't know if you've heard anything about graduation. Went off without a hitch, right? Everything was fine. So nothing to see here. But we have one final award that we presented. That's the ACE Award. You guys know that that's the scholarship that the Exchange Club gives with two objectives. It's to help encourage students to overcome any sort of hardships and get back on track towards graduation and a high school diploma. And it recognizes those students who are often overlooked for accomplishments, but still are great leaders and sound students. We had, these are nominated by the faculty and staff at Lake Highlands High School, and we have one of those recipients here with us today. I want to introduce him to you all. This is Dwan Straughter. Okay, everyone, Dwan, I asked him a couple questions and I said he's going to introduce you. You have the floor for a number of minutes. I will hold on to the microphone wire to edit, and if should anything happen, but the real thing I wanted you all to know, as I'm sure all vociferous Dallas Cowboy fans, is that Dwan is a Go Pack Go fan. So, all right. So he's got some opinions on that. So, Dwan, tell everybody what your plans are for the next year.
Hey, I'm Dwan. I'm planning on going to Howard University for international business and concentrating in accounting. So that'd be my plan for the next 4 years after this.
You chose a real pushover, international business. I told him also that he's y'all are getting the housing stuff ready together now. Like if he has siblings, like many of us, but it's always interesting when you're living with someone else who has never had siblings or never lived anywhere else but home. So that's going to be a fun time for you, especially in the post-COVID world. That's going to be great. His favorite, like I told him, I just had some abbreviated version of some of the questions that we usually ask our students, and his favorite social media device is Twitter. And he said that if he could go anywhere in the world, it would be the UK. So, many people think that Washington, D.C. is the UK of the United States. So, so it makes sense. So, Dwan, we're really proud of your accomplishments, and the faculty and staff think extremely highly of you, as I know we're going to see some great things from you. The scholarship is funded in the fall and in the spring, and as a result, you've also been nominated up for the national scholarship, and hopefully everything's going to go well there. So we appreciate your leadership and your work in the community. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Congratulations, Dwan. All right, so we will get with our program. So I'm gonna have Michael come up and introduce our program.
Morning, Lake Highlands. So I spoke with Doug earlier, and he said that we were good to take all the money we raised at auction last week and invest it in Dogecoin. So Baxter's here this morning to tell us how we do that. No, seriously, I mean, over the last couple of years, and certainly over the last 6 months or so, I mean, I've had any number of conversations with folks where the topic turns to blockchain or Bitcoin or Dogecoin or what have you, and the conversation invariably ends with someone saying, somebody's going to have to teach me about all that. And so that's why we've got Baxter here today to educate us on this new technology. So Baxter is traditionally trained in finance. He has his undergrad degree from UVA in economics and an MBA from UT. He's spent 20 years at various firms, NFJ Investments, the Teachers Retirement System of Texas, and Thomson Reuters. Last year, Baxter founded Honeycomb Digital Investments, where he manages portfolios of traditional assets, security tokens, and digital assets. He has also published on the subject. You can find a link to his book, Digital Finance, Security Tokens and Unlocking the Real Potential of Blockchain, in the newsletter that went out this week. So as you can see, Baxter is joining us virtually today. Baxter is in high demand right now, and he's presenting at a conference in Miami this week. So we're fortunate that Baxter carved out some time this morning to join us virtually. So Baxter, thank you very much for being here, and take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. Can everybody hear me okay? We're good. Well, great. No, I just to echo what Michael was saying, I am here in Miami right now for a conference, And I can't tell you just how much energy and excitement there is around this topic of digital assets and putting all kinds of new products, whether they be cryptocurrencies, digital currencies like putting the US dollar or the yen or the euro onto the blockchain rails, or even taking traditional securities like stocks, bonds, debt, real estate, putting that on the blockchain, all for the reason that you can create a much better, faster, cheaper way of doing business. And I really view this new technology and what's going on with blockchain as the biggest thing for the financial industry since the internet. It really has that much potential, and we are just in the early innings. Just to give you a little bit more color on the conference itself. So, as Michael was saying, 3 or 4 years ago, people really didn't pay much attention to what was going on in the blockchain space. And the last conference I went to, you can remember COVID's been going on, so that they've been put on the back burner for a while, but it was in Las Vegas and around Halloween of 2019. That conference had about 2,000 people. It was at the Cosmopolitan Hotel. It was a big event, but this one here today in Miami has over 12,000 people. So you've got a 6-fold increase in the number of people. And also what I've noticed is you're seeing an incredible amount of new talent from the traditional financial world, people from the Goldman Sachs's and the Morgan Stanley's and the big investment houses that you would all have heard of. They're starting to attend to this. And so I just see the energy and the emphasis on what's going on. People know it's real. They know we're at the early stages of something really big unfolding. So it's an honor to be able to speak with you all as well. I want to thank Michael and the Exchange Club of Lake Highlands for letting me do this. I'm going to speak for about 20-30 minutes, make sure that I leave plenty of time for questions at the end. So with that, let me see if I can share my screen with you and go over a couple slides. See if I can make that that work here. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen. And let's see. Okay, I wonder if everybody, if you can't see it, let me know. But I think you can now start to see this presentation material that I have. I'm going to use this slide deck and go from here. So just one of the things that I do want to mention just is the book that I wrote on this topic. As Michael mentioned, it's available on Amazon and other retailers. Really, I wrote this with 2 ideas in mind. First of all, is that most people, when they hear the idea of blockchain, they get intimidated. They think it's all about the technology. This is too complicated for me. I don't want to get into something that's going to just be totally over my head. I recommend people take a totally different approach to this. When I flew down here from Dallas to Miami, I didn't have to know how the engines on the airplane worked. I just needed to know to sit down in my seat and put my seatbelt on and enjoy the ride. Same thing if you use a microwave. I don't have to know how the internal waves work in the microwave. I've been able to teach my 7-year-old how to use it. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. But overall, with any technology, really all you need to know how to do is understand the benefits of it, how it can affect you, how it can make your life better. Blockchain is going to be the same way. And so don't be intimidated by it. My book is really about the benefits that it's going to bring to the world and to the financial community in general. So it's written with a premise that anybody can use this and don't let it scare you. The second thing that I wanted people to know is that this technology is going to touch almost every facet of our lives. When people hear the word blockchain, the first word they associate with it is Bitcoin. And while Bitcoin is an incredibly important part of this blockchain journey, it's really, again, just the first piece. We're going to see all kinds of new products unfolding. And in fact, I believe that we're going to see hundreds of trillions of dollars of assets going on to the blockchain. As I mentioned earlier, that could be stocks, it could be bonds, it could be debts. This better, faster, cheaper way of doing things is going to be developed, and it's going to have blockchain as the primary technology that underlines it. And so it's going to be something that's going to really unfold over the next many, many years, and we're going to see lots and lots of years of growth. So this book really covers all of those topics. So before I get into the investment parts and really get into Bitcoins, cryptocurrencies, and the rise of digital assets, I need to say, just for legal reasons, that none of this is investment advice. I'm happy to share this presentation with you. Just ask Michael. I've given him all of these slides, and on slide 33 of this presentation, I've got a disclaimer. So just wanted to mention that to you. And my objectives here are really, with this presentation, to talk about what is unfolding in the space, why it's important, and then to provide some insights and information on where this market is heading. I'm going to discuss some of the big trends that are happening and provide a framework on how to think about all of this. So a lot of people say with Bitcoin, it's very volatile and it's gone up a lot. Should I get involved? And my answer to that is that I do think that in general that there has been a lot of upside that's been had, but we're really only in the initial years of a multi-decade long period of growth in this blockchain journey, and digitization is going to continue to unfold. You can see here a quote on slide 4 from the former president of the NASDAQ. He thinks that this stuff is going to be huge over the next few years. Jay Clayton, who is the former SEC chairman, right before he left office, he had a presentation in Washington, and he gave a quote. He said, "It may very well be the case that all stocks become tokenized one day," meaning that even stocks like Microsoft or Amazon, they're going to go on the blockchain. And you think, well, that's already so efficient. What's the reason for it? And it's because you can settle these securities much faster. If you were to sell your Microsoft stock today, you'd have to wait 3 days. So here we are on Friday. Saturday and Sunday don't count. So you have to start the clock on probably on Monday. So maybe you're going to get your money on Thursday from selling something like that. With the blockchain, instant settlement, you'll get the cash. The other person would get the securities. There'd be no disputing that the transaction took place. So there actually are tons of benefits, and I could go over more of those. But I'm going to focus a little bit more on crypto today because I know that's what you all are very interested in. So one question that I get from people, because this is such a broad topic, is really, what is cryptocurrency? What is Bitcoin? And I say, gosh, that's actually a really hard question to do. It's a little bit like describing the game of basketball and all its rules in under 2 minutes. It's really hard to take it all in if you really don't know anything about the topic. But what I would say to you is just realize that now today we're at a point where in every country in the world, there's someone out there that will accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. It's that broadly dispersed at this point. And it is an incredibly powerful way, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, of sending value and information to anyone through the internet without needing a third party. So like, for example, if you give your credit card to somebody, you think maybe the transaction is just between you and that other person. Well, the reality is there are all kinds of banks and credit card processing companies and transfer types of mechanisms that go on between between the two of you. And that ends up taking a huge bite out of the end money that the receiver would get from that type of transaction. So this new peer-to-peer way of sending money, again, through the internet, through Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, is really a way to, again, cut out all of that, cut out all of those middlemen, cut out unnecessary costs. And it's also a way to make sure that someone can't stop you from sending that value. So that's very, very important. So Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, they really solve a lot of real world economic problems. First of all, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, they are scarce in the sense that they are defined within the programming themselves, how many of the different coins there are in circulation at any given time. People don't realize that with the dollars that we use for transactions today, the government can just print those without any repercussions. Obviously, there could be secondary effects where eventually inflation and higher prices will take place because the scarcity of those dollars will go down. One question that I ask audiences that I speak to, I say, if you had to guess how many dollars there are today versus how many dollars there were in circulation before the great financial crisis of 2009. Does anybody have any idea around what percentage the pre-2009 dollars are in comparison to today? Well, that answer is there are over 4 times as many new dollars. So it's a 20% of the dollars that are in circulation today were available pre-2009. So that's pretty staggering when you think about it. Whereas you have some of these cryptocurrencies that, again, you define how many they're going to be. It's programmed into the tokens themselves, and you can't change that over time. That's actually a very powerful thing where there's that scarcity to them. And then the fact that you can send them peer to peer and they're censor resistant. A lot of people are looking at Bitcoin and other cryptos as a hedge against inflation and a runaway printing of dollars and other currencies around the world. So that's something that I think is really important for people to know. But there are other reasons why you would invest into these digital assets. The main reason people get associated with them or have a yearning to learn about them is because they've seen just how much they've gone up in value over the years. In fact, Bitcoin is probably one of the best performing assets of all time, and it's only been around since 2009. Another reason people gravitate towards these digital assets is that they don't traditionally move along the same kinds of, and generate the same kinds of returns that other assets do. They're not correlated. And so people who are looking to build a diversified portfolio of assets, they want to include these non-correlated products because it creates an overall better risk-adjusted return stream for the end investor. We've talked about hedges against inflation and instability, the fact that no one's in control of a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. It's already algorithmically programmed. You can't change the code that runs it. People are tending to gravitate towards those types of assets. And then I've also mentioned over here that in this slide number 6 that by getting into cryptocurrencies, it positions you to understand these new assets, these digitally programmed vehicles that other types of economic activity can happen on. And so it positions you to be able to have this optionality for future growth. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to see all kinds of new lending products in the digital space. We're going to see all kinds of new other applications that are done on the blockchain. And so it's a way to differentiate your portfolio, and it's a way to really just get accustomed and comfortable to what's going on in this new blockchain journey. So seeing incredible new demand. Just to go over some trends that are in motion today. As I was saying, this is one of the hottest topics in the world today. It's almost like you can't turn on CNBC or go to different news organizations and avoid finding something about crypto. It's really in demand. And 3 big trends that I'm seeing that create sort of a framework for how to think about how this market will progress that they're important to know about is, number 1, adoption is on the rise. More and more people are using crypto or the blockchain-based assets to trade value through the internet. As I mentioned, just as the stat today about how many people are attending this conference in Miami versus other popular ones just a few years ago. It's really unbelievable, and I'll show you some other stats on that. Also, the infrastructure that is used to trade these currencies or to get access to them is improving. I remember when I first heard about Bitcoin, it was in 2009. I was with some friends in San Francisco. We had some couples, we'd taken our kids out there to have a good time, enjoy the San Francisco Bay Area. And I remember we were talking about this topic, and my daughter was starting to, she was really young. She was starting to act out. My wife said, go ahead and walk her around, kind of calm her down. And I thought about looking back, had I just walked over to one of the parks in San Francisco where they were selling the little thumb drives full of Bitcoin, we probably would have never had to work again in our lives. But that was literally how you had to purchase this stuff 10 years ago. It was almost like you go to literally like parks in major cities around the world. There was only a few places like, New York or San Francisco that you could do this. And nowadays you can go on Coinbase. You're hearing Charles Schwab, Fidelity, other big institutions that are selling this stuff where you can very easily take your bank account and link it to an account to buy crypto. So just having that the ease of purchase alone is making things much easier to act in these assets, which I think will lead to additional demand. And then also the regulatory environment, while it's not completely ironed out, it is starting to be addressed. And it seems that countries around the world are starting to accept that they've got to do something about crypto and about what's unfolding in the bigger blockchain picture. And so that is making people more comfortable with buying these assets. So I think those are the three things to really think about as we're looking at the demand for digital assets. And I'm going to go over some of these just briefly, just to give you a little bit more color on the topic. So first of all, in terms of adoption, I've got a chart here that shows how the internet, the number of users unfolded from its genesis, and then overlapping that with the number of people using blockchain is measured by the number of people who have wallets that can hold Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So the number of internet users would be defined as people who had an internet service provider, basically had access to the internet. And Deutsche Bank did this study, and as you can see, we're in about year 9 or 10 now. This 2020 is here at about year 9. What you see is these two charts really overlap. And so if you think about how the internet took the world by storm and how many years of growth unfolded, and we're seeing similar types of trajectories with blockchain, that is a pretty good sign that more good stuff is going to come. I hear all the time people coming to me and saying, hey, I just signed up for a wallet to buy Bitcoin or a wallet to buy Ethereum, or maybe they got a Coinbase account. There's still only a very small people out there who are using this today. So there's a small base to build off of, and around the world, more and more people are gravitating to this at an ever increasing rate. So I think you're going to see this exponential growth continue over time. And I think that's just, again, great for demand for these kinds of products. Second, in terms of the infrastructure I mentioned earlier, how much easier it is to buy the stuff. Well, there are other companies, and as you can see here on slide 10, these are companies that you've probably heard of. Big name, well-financed organizations that are dumping tons of money into this technology because they know it is the wave of the future. So like, for example, Fidelity, one of the best known asset management firms, they have built custodial services so that people can hold digital assets. HSBC, one of the largest banks in the world, they have decided that the bond market is very inefficient. It's very paper-based. There's a lot of just moving of paper that has to be done when someone buys a commercial piece of debt, or maybe they're buying whatever type of debt it is. HSBC has done a lot of research, and they found that if you put these records behind the bonds onto the blockchain, it is much more efficient. It settles faster. There's less chances for error. People get their payments quicker. They're now having over $10 billion worth of bonds on the blockchain, and that's just for them to use as a test case. The bond market is much bigger once they can have a proof of concept and make sure that all of the issues with their blockchain solution are ironed out. I would imagine they are going to put a heck of a lot more value onto the chain after that. Other entities that you're seeing here, I mean, like for example, Santander, the largest bank in Spain, they issued a bond on the blockchain, small face value of $20 million. Again, it's a lot of money, but it's relative to the size of the bond market, it's very small. But what they're trying to do again is do a use case, make sure that they can prove the concept. And then once they've done it, they just roll that winning formula out over and over again to all kinds of new deals. So yeah, as I mentioned here on the slide, the list continues to grow. More people are talking about this all the time. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, there's a really interesting, it's about a 5-minute clip that Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, he came out and said, it's part of our mandate here at the Federal Reserve to look at new technologies. And what we're finding is that blockchain is actually a very good way for us to improve our payment system. And so what he is, in my opinion, hinting at is that they're going to go down the road to creating a blockchain-based version of the US dollar. And what we've seen is more of these cryptographically programmable dollars and other currencies that get put on the blockchain. That leads to higher prices of the cryptocurrencies because it's almost like liquidity or money is being funneled into that realm of the market. So I think that's, again, very bullish for what's going on. And then also we're seeing institutions pick up and just buy the Bitcoins themselves. Not only are they building the infrastructure to do it, but they are starting to put it on their own balance sheet. The first example that we really saw of this was a company called MicroStrategies. They're based in Northern Virginia. It was founded around the time when the internet was coming around. Michael Saylor, who's the CEO, people thought he was crazy. Why are you buying Bitcoin, putting it on your balance sheet? Is that really what you should be doing? And he was saying, well, with the economic headwinds that we're facing, he said, I can't put my people, MicroStrategies is a software company. He says, I can't send my salespeople out into the field because COVID, they can't get meetings. We're seeing higher inflation than we'd like. So I'm just going to take money instead of and investing it into my traditional business. I'm just going to put it into Bitcoin. And I think that I'm going to get a better return from that. That he controls a significant amount of companies, so it was easy for him to do that. But other companies started to come along and do the same thing. You can see technology companies, banks, insurance companies like Mass Mutual. I mean, here's Mass Mutual. I don't know what kind of assets they have, but they put roughly $100 million into Bitcoin. I know that's a small fraction of their balance sheet. They could do a heck of a lot more. And so if you start seeing other insurance companies, other asset managers doing this, it's very bullish for cryptocurrencies in general. I think another thing that I would point out is Elon Musk has been in the headlines quite a bit recently, talking about how Tesla had bought into Bitcoin, and was talking about how other cryptocurrencies might be something that Tesla uses over time. There's been obviously volatility in the markets because of what he's stating, but I think that at a minimum, it's a pivotal type of event to see something like this, because now that the subject matter has been breached, it's been brought up, it's been debated in the national headlines, that opens the door for other companies to do the same thing. If a CFO decides, hey, I need to buy X amount of cryptocurrency because I want to put our supply chain on the blockchain, and I'm going to need these coins to pay for that. Why don't we buy a lot of them while they're cheap, put them on our balance sheet, and then we'll use them over time. A CFO is not going to get laughed out of a board meeting for doing that. I think they would have been a year ago. It would have just been too bold. It would have been too much for people to really take in. But now that you've got big companies again like MasterCard, Tesla, JP Morgan talking about it, that again opens the door for other people to come in. And again, with a lot of these cryptocurrencies being fixed in their supply, the demand rises. Sort of economics 101 says that's good for prices overall. So you can see some of the biggest names in the financial world are starting to talk about this. The list is growing, but like Abigail Johnson, she's the chairwoman of Fidelity. She has made many statements about how they think that Fidelity is going to continue to put out new products in this space. Everything from custodying the assets to offering financial funds for their clients to tokenized assets. So they're really bullish on this. People like Paul Tudor Jones, one of the most well-known hedge fund managers, he took a position in Bitcoin last year. So it's becoming more legitimized, or at least accepted. And so the sentiment around this has turned in a big way. And I think that is a great sign for what's going on with this new development. In terms of other infrastructure and how that affects demand, again, I think that we are still just at the very early stages of people adopting buying into digital assets and cryptocurrencies. Today, we're seeing it's really still dominated by individuals and traditional hedge funds, but wealth management platforms are starting to take on products and trying to get them approved by the appropriate regulators, whether that would be like VanEck is trying to get a mutual fund, or excuse me, an ETF approved. There are multiple applications with the SEC to do that at this time. You start having those platforms bring this on, that's going to be a big deal. And then institutional allocations will probably follow shortly thereafter. So whether it's the university endowments, whether it's pension plans, whether it's mutual fund, or insurance companies putting more and more money into these digital assets, or even sovereign wealth funds, big pockets of capital, lots of high powered dollars start flowing into this space. It's more money going after a scarce asset. That's usually very, very, it's a very good sign for where prices should go. So you've got, again, I go back to this idea of Bitcoin being algorithmically programmed, where the most Bitcoins there'll ever be in circulation is 21 million. And if you've got a fixed supply curve and you've got this exponentially rising demand, it should be very good for prices overall. With that, I know my time is limited. I want to be respectful of the opportunity you've given me. So let me just stop here and open up the floor to questions, and see where we'd like to use the remaining minutes that we have.
And for Baxter to hear your question, it's got to come through this microphone. So feel free to either come up here or shout it out, and I'll repeat it the best I can. See, we've got one on the way.
Yeah, Baxter, can you explain the concept of cryptocurrency mining and why it takes so much electricity?
Absolutely. So the miners, the easiest way to think of this is they are the processors of the transaction. So think about when you go to the grocery store and you pay your bill, you swipe your card, and then there are computers that are processing those transactions behind the scenes. The same thing happens with Bitcoin and Ethereum. There are computers all over the world that are competing for a small amount of fees that are attached to a cryptocurrency transaction. So let me just back up and say this. So like if I were to send you 1 Bitcoin, I would probably have to I'd have to pay maybe 1.01 Bitcoins. You would get 1 Bitcoin, and then the Bitcoin network would get that 0.01. So that little fee is what these miners are competing for. Now, there is a lot of inefficiency in this market because it's winner take all. All of those computers are trying to be the first ones to process those transactions in a way that is in acceptance with what the algorithm of Bitcoin or Ethereum mandate. And the first one to win that and create the proper processing transactions, they get all of those fees that were associated with that block that goes onto the blockchain and basically announces to the world what transactions have unfolded. Well, all of those computers are burning all kinds of electricity. They're creating all kinds of heat. And as the price of Bitcoin has been going up, more and more computers are competing. And because it's winner take all, it's sort of this free for all, and people want the Bitcoins. And so more and more people have been, plugging in more and more computers, and that's just burning up energy. I think over time, you're going to see improvements to that. In the Ethereum blockchain, they're trying to change that so that it is not as energy intensive. And quite frankly, the world is going to demand that this process be made more efficient, and you don't have that as much waste. So tried not to be too technical with that. I hope that gives you a little bit of additional clarity into why the mining is more energy intensive than it should be, and really the basics of how it works.
So my question is more general about, it seems to, even, I guess we're still in the early adopter stage of all of this, if you look in a very broad, worldwide view of it. Therefore, it appears to be a bit of the wild, wild west or gold rush kind of environment. So who's the referee? Is the attraction of this that there are no referees, or indeed, is there someone out there making sure, for lack of a better term, it's fair and the scammers of the world aren't getting away with it, generally speaking? I know they get away with it in the current systems that we all use too, but just talk a little bit about, how do people feel confident jumping into the pool when they don't really understand it, despite, hearing things like what you shared with us? It takes a lot to get there when people got to let go of their own green to participate.
Absolutely. So I would say that sort of two parts to that question. The first part, or the first part of the answer, would be that in terms of the fairness of it, the rules of how these blockchains work have been put into, sort of set in stone, if you will, by being put into computer code. And so it's really governed by mathematics. It's governed by computer science. And that in and of itself makes it so that it's hard for people to cheat the system. And we just talked about the process of mining. Since there are so many people out there mining this stuff and all of these computers working, it's hard to pull off a sort of conspiracy, if you will, to defraud someone out of a transaction, because the minute you try and change data or you try to reverse something, it's really impossible, because it will mess up all of the results. And so your ledger that you're trying to create on the blockchain would not match up with the ledgers that all of the other people in the network have. And so it's almost like you'd be trying to speak gibberish to these other people who have the actual list. And so what's interesting about blockchain is, once you create something and you create a transaction, it requires certain things, like it has to have your signature involved with it, your digital signature, very much like when you send an email. It's got to, they make sure that the money that, or the number of coins that are in your account are actually there. And then they move that to another person's account. And so all of those steps are recorded, they're tracked. You can go back and audit them, and you know that they actually happened because, again, multiple people have signed off on this type of a transaction. And it's once you put it into the blockchain, you can't go back and change it, because again, it would mess up all of the mathematics, and the computers can detect it instantaneously that something was trying to be pulled off. So that's the first part. That the technology itself is really the enforcement mechanism. The second thing that I would say is that Bitcoin is just one, and Ethereum are just two examples of these blockchains. Newer blockchains are being created every day, and some of these are much better, faster, and cheaper, in my opinion, than what we're dealing with Ethereum and Bitcoin. Now, they have the brand names, they already have a network, so they have a huge competitive advantage there. But what is nice about blockchain in general is, because it is a technology, you can program other aspects on top of those chains. And so you can embed things like compliance, contractual obligations, other types of ways for an intermediary like the government to be able to intervene if should it need to. And so those kinds of checks and balances can be put into a blockchain and make it more user-friendly, if you will. Now, you also have to think about, what do certain people want with a blockchain. There are people that don't want any possibility of regulation or government control. And so that, in some ways, Bitcoin is a perfect solution for them, because it's a little bit older technology. You can't add to it in that way. It's already been set in motion. So people like that. But other people, require something different, or we need that to be comfortable investing. And so these newer technologies are coming along that allow for that. And so I think, again, going back to like the premise of my book, I want people to know that blockchain is not just about Bitcoin and Ethereum. There are all kinds of other opportunities out there that are unfolding that will have these new aspects that I just mentioned around safety, around speed, around new types of economic use cases and abilities to solve real world problems. That's all unfolding in today's marketplace.
Hey, I think very simplistically. So when you think of this as an asset, in terms of risk, I think cash is least risky, and then, stocks, bonds, somewhere in there, futures, pork bellies, where do you put this on the linear chain of risk in terms of, diversifying a portfolio or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I say to clients, I'm going to share my screen one more time and show you a slide on that. What I would first say is that yes, this stuff is risky in that it can move up or down very, very, very rapidly. And we actually saw that about 2 weekends ago. The Bitcoin price dropped, and some of the other lesser known cryptocurrencies dropped even more. How I view this is from sort of I'm a CFA. I view this from a very high finance way of how do different asset classes put out returns, and how do they all fit together. Without getting too technical, one of the things that people look at is correlation. How do assets move relative to one another? And what we see with cryptocurrencies is shown on this slide in the last line, is they correlate with other well-known assets like global bonds, US bonds, MLPs, REITs, et cetera, small cap stocks, in a much lower way than those assets correlate with one another. And a financial planner will tell you that by adding additional uncorrelated assets, that can create diversification in your portfolio. And when you are to look at how these assets would have performed together over time, what we're seeing is that by adding a small amount of cryptocurrency to your portfolio, you can actually increase your risk return ratio, because of, again, the way it behaves with these other assets, the historic returns that it's had over time. You can actually dampen your volatility and dampen and increase your returns by adding a small amount. So what I say to people is, look, this is not something you bet the farm on. If your risk tolerance is right, you want to potentially add between, say 1% and 5% of your portfolio into something like Bitcoin for all the reasons that I said. It's got good capital appreciation potential, doesn't correlate with other assets in your portfolio. It could be a hedge against inflation. It's got attributes in there that can give you an edge. And historically, it shows that that's happened. So like what this simulation here is showing is we take a traditional sort of 60-40 portfolio, meaning 60% of your assets would be in stocks, 40% would be in bonds. We look at how those assets performed over the 8-year period going back. And what we see is that by adding 1% in Bitcoin and taking away 1% out of stocks, you can increase your return, but actually decrease or just slightly increase your risk by doing that. And so the ratio of the two is measured by something that a lot of financial planners and CFAs will look at. It's called the Sharpe ratio. You can increase your Sharpe ratio, but if you put too much Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in there, then the volatility is just too much to stomach. So I think you have to be prudent about your allocations, and you have to just, before you buy, you need to really go over what is your tolerance for risk, what are you willing to accept, what are your goals and needs over the short and long term. So by evaluating that and by the right type of financial planning, again, you can, I think you can add a tremendous amount of value by getting your feet in the water and just slowly getting into cryptocurrencies.
All right. Well, I see we have gone past the hour. So Baxter, I know you've got meetings to attend there, so we'll be respectful of your time, but want to thank you again for joining us this morning. We appreciate the education.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions. You know, we help investors get into crypto all the time, and would love to work with you and be able to answer any questions you may have on the subject. Thanks, everyone.
All right, so very fascinating. Thank you, Michael, for setting that up today. DeJuan, congratulations again. Best of luck to you in the future, and I know you'll do great things. Reminder, vote Saturday, 7 to 7. Take a car full of friends and neighbors with you. Dinner next Wednesday, 6:30. No meeting next Friday because the dinner Wednesday. So with that, we are adjourned.